In today's tip of the week, I want to once again address the negotiation and payment of the HOA charges associated with a transfer of real property. I am only addressing this issue with respect to the transfer of the single-family residence and not condominium. As I've pointed out in previous podcasts, Paragraph C of the Addendum for Property subject to mandatory membership in a Properties Owners Association covers all fees associated with the transfer of a residence, no matter what the fee is called, be it called a transfer fee, reserve fee, foundation fee, onboarding fee, whatever. In that paragraph, buyer and seller negotiate how much of those fees are paid by each. The paragraph reads, fees and deposits for reserves. Except as provided by paragraphs A and D, buyer shall pay any and all association fees, deposits, reserves, and/or other charges associated with the transfer of the property not to exceed blank, and seller shall pay any excess. Irrespective of how the HOA addresses those fees and how they designate who is to pay which fee, the contract governs how those fees are split. Confusion arises when agents call the HOA to get these fees before negotiating the contract and misunderstand that although an HOA may say something like the deposit for reserves is a buyer fee, it all depends on how the parties negotiate paragraph C. If the HOA charges a reserve fee of $2,000 and paragraph 3 states buyer to pay the first $250, seller will pay the bulk of those fees. Again, the contract governs how those fees are to be paid and not the HOA. Another source of confusion arises because of the misunderstanding of what is meant when the contract refers to those fees associated with the transfer. Some HOAs now require the title company to collect a couple of months of prepaid dues at closing. And some people argue that because those are due at closing, those are fees associated with the transfer. That is a misinterpretation of what it's meant. I explained that that phrase actually means, but for the transfer, these fees would not be charged. If the dues would be due whether or not transfer takes place, those dues are not fees associated with the transfer. Buyer would be responsible for paying them. Even if the parties still argue that the prepaid dues should be considered as part of the negotiated split in paragraph C because it's collected at closing, then the title company would have to defer to paragraph 13 of the contract, which governs prorations. Any prepaid assessments would then have to be prorated, and buyer would end up reimbursing seller for the prepaid dues. Either way, buyer will be responsible for paying any prepaid dues collected at closing. Rumor has it that the Broker Lawyer Committee is working on some language to clarify what is meant by fees associated with the transfer, so as to avoid this industry-wide confusion. Stay tuned. Finally, as a reminder, TREC has created a website for easy lookup of the fees that are charged by the HOA. Take a look at hoa.texas.gov. I hope this video podcast is helpful to you. Please let Allegiance Title be your trusted resource for results. Thank you.